Alright, so welcome back to the channel. This time we're taking a look at the iFi Zen DAC V2. So I've been requesting this unit from iFi for quite some time now. As you may recall, I was absolutely blown away by what the iFi Micro iDSD signature had to offer. It did it all within a tiny little footprint. It even transformed one of my less favored headphones, the HiFiMAN Aryas, into one of my favorites. Its only drawback: battery-powered operation, at least for my use case. And yes, I know you can just plug it in, but there's just something about the whole battery usage that just makes me uncomfortable with leaving it constantly plugged in. And so today we've got the iFi Zen DAC V2 in front of us, which offers similar features to the signature. But how does it compare? So let's start by taking a look at the unit by itself, and then we'll compare it against the signature. Here we go. Contents, build, and I/O. So you get the unit itself, a very short male USB-A to male USB-B cable, a 3.5mm to 1/4 inch adapter, a short dual RCA to dual RCA cable, the manual, and the warranty. Now, don't be alarmed if you don't see a DC charger, the power plug. The unit does not include one. This is normal considering it derives all of its power from the USB port. But of course, you can simply acquire a simple DC 5V charger if you'd rather take that route. And of course, links in the description to some of those, I'll have them down below. Now as for the unit itself, on the front you'll see the power match button, the true bass button, the volume knob, the single-ended output port, and the Pentacon balanced output port. As for the LED behind the volume knob, it will glow a different color depending on your PC settings. And here's a look at what each color means. You can go ahead and pause the video and take a look at that if you'd like. Now on the rear of the device, you've got the Pentacon balanced output, the variable versus fixed switch, dual RCA outputs, the USB Type-B audio and power input, and the DC 5V power input. And that's pretty much all there is to it. It's very solid construction, all metal, very sturdy, no concern with it breaking whatsoever. Here, listen to this. That's pretty awesome. Now let's jump into amplification, sound, and functions. On my Sennheiser HD560S, I get up to 1130 with power match disabled and 10 with power match enabled. On my HD600, I get up to 1230 with power match disabled and 10 with power match enabled. On the HiFiMAN Aryas, I get up to 1 with power match disabled and 1130 with power match enabled. So yeah, this thing is powerful for a USB-powered DAC. Now as for its stock sound, without any sort of modifications to it, it's extremely clean and capable. I didn't hear anything strange whatsoever. Do have a couple of notes in the notes and observations portion regarding the sound of it, the actual the sound signature, but we'll discuss that later on. And now let's take a look at the functions. So there's not much to say about power match. It's a simple gain switch, off, on, that's pretty much it. It's what it does. True bass, though, is where things get a little interesting. This happens to be the main selling point of the device. It's essentially a bass switch, so you can get that extra oomph without resorting to digital EQ and, having to modify that on your computer or personal listening device. So the true bass functionality, as I've noticed, seems to aim towards a larger or wider portion of the low end. My biggest reason for trying out the Zen DAC V2 is to see whether it brought out that oomph factor out of the Arya's bass response as well as or better than the signature does. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And I've brought out the iDSD signature here so you can see the differences in the color. So like I mentioned, it encompasses more of the mid bass than the signature does. Now, this isn't all bad for bass-oriented tracks, but it can detract from other tracks. It can bleed in a bit and muddy the mids on certain tracks, and of course depending on the headphones. So I'll give you an example. Alive, the Zed remix by Empire of the Sun. I absolutely love what the Signature's X-Bass toggle does for the track here. It gives it that extra oomph closer to the sub bass, which brings the rumble without introducing too much of the warmth. The Zen's true bass does this similarly, but also introduces a little extra warmth up top, to where I can't completely enjoy the Aryas because it just becomes too much. Now, one thing I will mention though, I did not expect the HD600s to sound good with the true bass functionality on the Zen DAC V2, but I was definitely wrong about that. Now, I'm not necessarily saying it's like an improvement across the board. I'm not saying it's the end game for HD600 users, like you need this in your life. Not necessarily. It straight up amplifies the bass response across the board, but it doesn't mess it up in any way that I may have noticed. It's more like if you want extra heft in the low end, you know, toggle it on for that one track. And I could honestly just toggle it on and enjoy most tracks as a change of pace on the HD600s. Really. Once again though, it's not like the ultimate game changer, it's not like a must-have for HD600 users, it's a nice change of pace, and it's definitely not a bad one. I'll just put this back here for this. So now let's discuss the notes and observations portion. One of the main concerns I had with the unit's operation is a tiny little detail most people would overlook. Okay, so if it's USB powered, how do you turn it off? Well, you can't. It stays on so long as it's connected to the source. And so I worried that whatever headphone you have connected to it when the PC is asleep may experience some sort of like loud crackling or unexpected pops that may come from the source that may damage the headphones when you weren't listening to them. Thankfully, while the unit does remain powered even when the PC is asleep, it disconnects from the source in sleep mode. So once you wake up the computer, it will reconnect. Still not as much as a relief as if I would have been able to turn it off completely, but it's something. Also, here's that thing I wanted to point out sound-wise. Both units are very, very clean and neutral. However, you will notice a bit of a difference if you own both and compare them side by side. The Signature does sound a tad more V-shaped than the Zen. Or should I say the Zen sounds a little more A-shaped? Either way, it is noticeable. The Zen sounds a tad less sharp in the highs and a little more lean on the lows. And so, conclusion time. Well, what can I say? This unit is pretty impressive. It honestly is. It's got a lot of things packed into a pretty affordable package. Granted, it wouldn't quite work for me because the Signature still has the better bass boost functionality for my Aryas, which is the main thing I'm looking for from one of iFi's DACs. But like I said, it worked pretty damn well for the HD600s, so it really just depends on what headphone you got to pair with it. Even without that true bass functionality though, for around $160, you get a balanced DAC amp that offers you clean performance through USB, as well as outputs to pass the signal to. It's really all most people would ever need. Though if you were looking for an optical input, sort of like the Signature has, or other DACs that are more affordable, closer to this price range, there are other options out there. Or if you were looking for XLR outputs to the headphone, it would be best to look elsewhere. So no, this is not the end-all for everyone, but it is a very strong contender for most people depending on your use case. So what does that mean for me? That means I'm still going to hold on to the Signature because the Signature does what I want from it really well. It's clean, it's powerful, it's portable, and it amplifies the Arya's bass to the way I want it. Whereas the Zen just doesn't, for me. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I really hope this helped your purchasing decision. Now, I will see you in the next one. Okay, ciao.